Dr. Minji Park wiped the sweat from her forehead as she studied the strange plants on the alien planet. The red sun above made everything look like it was covered in blood. She had been working on this planet for 3 weeks now, collecting samples, and taking notes about the strange life forms that lived here. "Minji, we should head back to the ship soon," called Dong-Yun Kim from behind a large rock. He was the security officer for their small team, always worried about their safety. His rifle was ready in his hands as he watched the horizon. "Just 5 more minutes," Minji said, carefully placing a small purple flower into her sample bag. "These plants are amazing. They seem to change color when they sense movement nearby." Hyeri Choi, their engineer, was fixing a broken scanner near the landing spot. She looked up and smiled. "The ship systems are running perfectly. We can stay. A bit longer if you need more samples, Minji." The 3 humans had been friends since their training days on Earth. They worked well together on these dangerous missions to unknown worlds. Minji was the scientist who studied alien life. Dong-Yun kept them safe from hostile creatures and environments. Hyeri made sure all their equipment worked properly. Their ship, the Stellar Dawn, sat quietly on the rocky ground about 50 meters away. It was a small research vessel, built for speed and stealth rather than fighting. Most human. Ships that came to unexplored planets were like this. Humans preferred to learn about new worlds, rather than conquer them. Minji knelt down to examine another interesting plant when the ground began to shake. At first, she thought it might be an earthquake, but then she heard a loud rumbling sound, coming from above. "Look up!" Dong-Yun shouted, pointing his rifle toward the sky. A massive ship appeared through the red clouds. It was dark green and covered in sharp spikes. The ship was at least 10 times bigger than their small research vessel. Strange symbols glowed along its sides in bright yellow light. "Vorthek warship," Hyeri whispered in fear. Everyone in the galaxy knew about the Vorthek Empire. They were reptilian aliens who loved war and conquest. They thought all other species were weak and deserved to be slaves. "Run to our ship," Dong-Yun ordered. "We need to get off this planet now." But before they could move, smaller ships dropped from the large vessel like angry insects. These fighter craft surrounded the 3 humans in seconds. Green laser beams shot from the ships, creating a cage of deadly light around them. Minji felt her heart beating fast. She had read about the Vorthek in her studies, but she had never seen them in person. They were known for their cruelty toward other species. Humans who encountered them rarely survived to tell their stories. The small fighter ships landed on the rocky ground. Doors opened with a loud hiss, and the Vorthek soldiers stepped out. Minji had never seen anything so frightening. The aliens were tall, about 3 meters high, with dark green scales covering their bodies. Their heads looked like giant snakes with yellow eyes that seemed to glow with hatred. Sharp teeth filled their mouths, and long claws extended from their fingers. They wore black armor that made them look even more dangerous. "Soft-skinned mammals," one of the Vorthek said in broken human language. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "You are now prisoners of the mighty Vorthek Empire." Dong-Yun raised his rifle and fired at the closest alien. The energy beam hit the Vorthek soldier in the chest, but the alien just laughed. The shot had barely scratched his armor. "Pathetic," the Vorthek commander said. He was bigger than the others, with red markings on his scales. "Your weak weapons cannot hurt true warriors." More Vorthek soldiers surrounded them. Dong-Yun kept firing, but his weapon was useless against their advanced armor. Hyeri tried to run toward their ship, but a green laser beam knocked her to the ground. She was not hurt badly, but she could not move. "Stop fighting or we kill the females," the commander threatened. Dong-Yun lowered his rifle. He knew he could not win against so many enemies, but his eyes still burned with anger and defiance. The Vorthek commander walked up to Dong-Yun and examined him like he was looking at an interesting insect. "You have some fighting spirit, human. Too bad your species is so weak." Without warning, the commander's claws shot out and pierced through Dong-Yun's chest. Minji screamed as her friend fell to the ground, blood spreading across the red rocks. "No," she cried, running toward Dong-Yun's body. But two Vorthek soldiers grabbed her arms and held her back. "That is what happens to soft-skins who resist," the commander said with satisfaction. "You mammals think you are brave, but you break so easily." Hyeri was crying as other soldiers dragged her to her feet. Her leg was injured from the laser blast, but she could still walk. "Why did you kill him?" Minji asked through her tears. "He was not a threat to you." The Vorthek commander tilted his large head and looked at her with those terrible yellow eyes. "We kill because we can. Because you are prey animals pretending to be hunters. Your entire species exists only for our entertainment." The aliens forced Minji and Hyeri toward their fighter ships. As they walked, Minji looked back at Dongyun's body lying on the alien ground. She promised herself that his death would not be meaningless. Somehow, she would find a way to survive and escape, but first, she had to live through whatever the Vorthek had planned for them. The fighter ship's doors closed with a bang, trapping the two human women inside. The ship lifted off from the planet's surface, carrying them toward the massive Vorthak war vessel that waited in orbit. Minji and Hyeri held hands in the darkness, both wondering if they would ever see Earth again. The inside of the Vorthak warship was dark and cold. Metal walls covered in strange symbols stretched in every direction. Red lights blinked along the corridors like angry eyes watching the prisoners. Minji and Hyeri were pushed through long hallways by Vorthak guards. Their clawed feet made clicking sounds on the metal floor. The air smelled terrible, like rotting meat mixed with chemicals. "Move faster, soft-skins," one guard hissed. He poked Hyeri with his weapon when she limped too slowly. Her injured leg was getting worse. They walked for what felt like hours through the massive ship. Minji tried to remember the path they took, but every corridor looked the same. The ship was huge, much bigger than any human vessel she had ever seen. Finally, they reached a large metal door. It opened with a loud grinding sound, revealing a room full of cages. The smell inside was even worse than the corridors. It was the smell of fear, pain, and death. "Welcome to your new home," the guard laughed as he threw them into an empty cage. The cage was small and dirty. There was barely enough room for both women to sit down. A bucket of dirty water sat in one corner, and some moldy food was scattered on the floor, but Minji was not looking at their cage. She was staring at the other prisoners around them. There were dozens of different alien species locked up in similar cages. She had never seen so many different life forms in one place. In the cage next to them was a tall, thin creature with blue skin and 4 arms. Its large black eyes looked at them with sadness. Across the room, a furry beast with 6 legs paced back and forth, growling softly. "What is this place?" Hyeri whispered. "Prison," said a weak voice from the cage on their other side. Minji turned to see a strange alien lying on the floor of his cage. He looked like a mixture of a bird and a lizard, with colorful feathers covering scaly skin. One of his wings was broken, and there were many scars on his body. "I am Ketek," the creature said in rough human language. "I have been here for many months." "You are humans, yes. I have heard of your species." "Yes, we are humans," Minji replied. "I am Minji, and this is Hyeri. What do the Vorthek want with us?" Ketek made a sound that might have been a laugh, but it was full of pain. "They want entertainment. The Vorthek love to watch other species fight and die. It makes them feel powerful." Hyeri grabbed Minji's arm. "Fight and die. What do you mean?" "The arena," Ketek explained, pointing with his good wing toward the far end of the prison room. "Every few days they take prisoners to fight their war beasts. Sometimes they make prisoners fight each other. The Vorthek watch and cheer when we suffer." Minji felt sick. She had read about gladiatorial combat in Earth's ancient history, but she never imagined aliens might do the same thing. "Has anyone ever survived?" she asked. "A few," Ketek said. "If you are very strong or very lucky, you might live through 1 or 2 fights. But eventually, everyone dies. The Vorthak have been doing this for hundreds of years." Over the next few hours, more prisoners were brought to the jail. Minji watched as aliens of many different species were thrown into cages. Some were warriors who had been captured in battle. Others were simple travelers who had been in the wrong place at the wrong time. Just like her and Hayeri, each prisoner had the same look of fear and despair in their eyes. They all knew what was waiting for them. "Tell me about the arena," Minji said to Ketek as a scientist. She wanted to understand what they were facing. Ketek was quiet for a long time. Then he began to speak in a low voice. "The arena is huge. It has different environments depending on what the Vorthak want to see. Sometimes it looks like a jungle. Sometimes like a desert or an ice world. They can change it with their technology." "What about the beasts?" Hayeri asked, though she looked like she did not want to know the answer. "Many different creatures," Ketek replied. "Some are from conquered worlds. Others are bred specially for fighting. But the worst is the Gorthak." "The Gorthak," Minji repeated. "The ultimate predator," Ketek whispered. "It is as big as a building and covered in armor-like scales. The Vorthak have had it for over 200 years. In all that time, no creature has ever survived a fight with the Gorthak." "What does it look like?" Minji asked. Her scientific mind was already working, trying to understand this creature. "Like a giant lizard, but with the intelligence of a hunter. It has 4 legs like tree trunks and teeth as long as swords. Its claws can cut through metal, and its eyes," Ketek shuddered. "Its eyes are full of rage and hatred." Hayeri started coughing. The bad air in the ship was making her sick. Her injured leg was also getting infected. Minji could see that her friend was getting worse. "The soft-skinned female is weak," laughed a Vorthak guard who was walking past their cages. "She will die soon, even without the arena?" "No," Minji said firmly. "I will not let her die." The guard stopped and looked at Minji with interest. "What will you do, little soft-skin? You cannot even break out of your cage." "If someone has to fight in the arena," Minji said, surprising herself with her boldness, "let it be me instead of her." The guard's yellow eyes grew brighter with amusement. "Brave words from Prey. Very well. When the next arena day comes, you will take her place." As the guard walked away laughing, Hayeri grabbed Minji's hand. "No, you cannot do this." "Yes, I can," Minji said, though her heart was beating fast with fear. "You are sick? You need time to recover? Maybe I can find a way to survive long enough for us both to escape." But even as she said it, Minji wondered if she was just delaying the inevitable. Could a human scientist really survive against creatures that had killed warriors and hunters from across the galaxy? She would find out soon enough. 3 days passed in the dark prison before the guards came for Minji. She had spent the time talking with other prisoners, learning everything she could about the arena and the creatures that fought there. "Today is Arena Day," announced Commander Vexmore as he walked between the cages. His red-marked scales gleamed under the prison lights. "Today we will show the galaxy how pathetic the human species truly is." 2 guards opened Minji's cage and dragged her out. Hayeri tried to grab her friend's hand, but the guards pushed her back. "Do not worry, Softskin," Vexmore said to Hayeri with a cruel smile. "You will see your friend again soon in pieces." The other Vorthak soldiers laughed at this joke. They thought it was very funny that a small human woman would try to fight. They're war beasts. Minji was taken through different corridors to a preparation room. Here they gave her a simple gray uniform and a small plasma knife. The weapon looked tiny in her hands. "This is all you get, human," a guard said. "Your ancestors used to hunt with sticks and stones. This knife is already too good for you." The plasma knife was about as long as her forearm. It could cut through some metals, but Minji doubted it would hurt the giant creatures she had heard about from the preparation room. She could hear loud sounds coming from above. Thousands of Vorthak voices were cheering and shouting. The entire arena event was being broadcast across their empire so all Vorthak could watch. "The human looks scared," one guard observed. "Good, fear makes the show more entertaining." But Minji was not just scared, she was thinking. During her 3 days in prison, she had asked every prisoner about the creatures in the arena. She learned about their hunting patterns, their weaknesses, and how they behaved. As a xenobiologist, Minji had studied predators and prey relationships on dozens of worlds. She knew that every creature, no matter how dangerous, had patterns and instincts that could be understood. A large door opened, and bright light flooded the preparation room. The sound of the crowd became much louder. "Time to die, soft skin," the guard said, pushing Minji toward the light. She walked out into the largest room she had ever seen. The arena was enormous, like a small city. The floor was covered with artificial jungle plants and rocks. Fake trees reached up toward the ceiling, and an artificial river ran through the middle. Above her, thousands of Vorthic spectators filled the seats. They were all screaming and making threatening gestures with their claws. Some held signs with human words like "death to soft skins" and "weak mammals die." In the center of the arena stood Commander Thexmore. His voice was made louder by speakers so everyone could hear him. "Citizens of the Vorthek Empire," he announced. "Today we have special entertainment. A human female thinks she can survive against our greatest warrior beasts. Let us show this pathetic mammal why the Vorthak rule the galaxy." The crowd roared with approval. They were excited to see a human die in horrible ways. Minji looked around the arena and tried to understand the environment. The jungle setting gave her some hope. She had studied jungle predators on Earth and other worlds. She knew how to move quietly and use plants for cover. "Release the scaver," Thexmore commanded. A gate opened on the far side of the arena. A creature the size of a large truck came charging out. It looked like a cross between a rhinoceros and a giant lizard. Its skin was covered in thick armor plates, and it had a horn as long as a spear on its nose. The scaver saw Minji and immediately charged toward her. Its feet made the ground shake with each step. Minji did not run in a straight line like most prisoners did. Instead, she moved toward the artificial trees and rocks. When the scaver reached the spot where she had been standing, she was already hidden behind a large boulder. The confused beast looked around, trying to find its prey. Minji watched it carefully from her hiding spot. She noticed that the scaver had small eyes and probably could not see very well. It seemed to hunt mainly by sound and movement. "The human is hiding," Thexmore said with disgust. How cowardly. Typical soft-skin behavior, but Minji was not being cowardly. She was being smart. She moved from rock to tree to bush, always staying out of the scaver's sight. Each time the creature charged at where it thought she was. Minji was already somewhere else. After 10 minutes, the scaver was tired and confused. It had been running around the arena without catching anything. The crowd was starting to get restless. "This is boring," some Vorthok shouted. "Kill the human already." Minji saw her chance. The scaver was breathing hard and had stopped near the artificial river. Its head was down as it tried to drink water. Moving very quietly, Minji crept up behind the creature. The scaver's armor was thick everywhere except around its legs where it needed to bend to walk with careful precision. Minji used her plasma knife to cut the tendons in the creature's back legs. The scaver collapsed with a loud cry of pain. It could no longer stand or chase her. The arena fell silent. No one had expected the small human to defeat the scaver so easily. "Impossible," Exmoor whispered. Then he spoke louder to the crowd. "The human got lucky. Let us see how she handles a real challenge." "Release the Gorthak," he commanded. Minji felt her heart stop. She had hoped to face smaller creatures first, but the Vorthik were angry that she had survived. Now she would face the ultimate predator that had killed hundreds of warriors over 2 centuries. A much larger gate began to open slowly. The Vorthak warship was in chaos. Freed creatures and liberated prisoners moved through the corridors like a river of rebellion. The Gorethak led the way, with Minji still riding on its back and dozens of other beings following behind. "Emergency. Lockdown initiated," announced the ship's computer in the Vorthak language. Red warning lights flashed everywhere, and blast doors began sealing off sections of the ship. Commander Thexmore stood on the command bridge, watching his carefully ordered world fall apart. His crew ran around in panic, trying to deal with problems they had never faced before. "Sir," reported one officer, "the creatures have reached level 5. They are freeing more prisoners." "Sir," called another, "our war beasts are refusing to obey commands. The neural implant network is failing." Thexmore slammed his clawed fist on the control panel. "How is this possible? One weak human female has destroyed everything we built." But Minji was not alone anymore. As the rebellion spread through the ship, She met other prisoners who had been planning their own escapes. In the maintenance tunnels beneath the ship, she found Tauntingly, a human engineer who had been captured months earlier. The Vorthak thought he was dead, but he had been hiding in the ship's lower levels, slowly sabotaging their systems. "I have been waiting for a chance like this," Taiwan said as he joined the growing group of rebels. "I know where they keep the escape pods and shuttles." The Gorethak had to bend its massive body to fit through the larger corridors, but it never complained. The great creature seemed happy to help free others, just as Minji had freed it. Along the way, they discovered more horrible truths about the Vorthak Empire. The ship contained laboratory areas where alien scientists were being forced to create new weapons, prison workshops where captives built equipment for their captors, even nurseries where young creatures from conquered worlds were being trained to become the next generation of war beasts. "We have to free everyone," Minji insisted when some of the prisoners wanted to escape immediately. "We cannot leave anyone behind." It took hours, but eventually they had liberated every captive on the ship. Hundreds of different species worked together to overcome their Vorthak guards. The creatures who had been war beasts showed the other prisoners how to fight. The freed scientists disabled security systems. The former slaves knew the ship's layout and helped guide everyone to safety. The rebellion was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen before. Instead of one species conquering another, this was cooperation between all species against their common oppressor. Commander Vexmore made one final attempt to regain control. He activated the ship's self-destruction system. "If I cannot rule this vessel," he declared, "then no one will have it. In 10 minutes, this ship will explode and take all the rebels with it." But Taiwan had been sabotaging the ship's systems for months. When Vexmore tried to lock the self-destruct countdown, he discovered that the controls no longer worked properly. "The destruction sequence has been disabled," reported a panicked technician. "Impossible," Vexmore roared. "Who could have done this?" "I did," Taiwan announced over the ship's communication system. "I have been preparing for this day since you captured me. Your ship belongs to us now." The final battle took place in the hangar bays where the escape vessels were kept. The remaining Vorthak soldiers made their last stand, trying to prevent the prisoners from reaching the shuttles. But the freed creatures fought with intelligence and coordination. The Gorethak used its size and strength to break through barricades. The flying beasts attacked from above while the diggers tunneled beneath the enemy positions. The smaller predators worked in packs to surround and overwhelm the guards, and in the center of it all was Minji, no longer the frightened scientist who had been captured on an alien planet. She had become a leader, coordinating the different species and making sure everyone reached safety. "The first shuttle is ready," called Ketek, the bird-lizard creature who had been in the cage next to Minji's. His broken wing had healed during the rebellion, and he was now helping others reach the escape pods. "Load the wounded and the younglings first," Minji ordered. "The strongest fighters will go last to make sure everyone gets out." It was a difficult choice. The Gorthak was too large to fit in any of the escape vessels. If it stayed behind, it would die when the ship was eventually destroyed or recaptured. "I cannot leave you," Minji said to her massive friend. The Gorthak made its gentle, rumbling sound and nuzzled her with its enormous head. Then it did something amazing. Using its claws, it began carving symbols into the metal wall of the hangar. "What is it doing?" Hyeri asked. She was much better now, though still weak. Minji studied the symbols and realized they were star maps. The Gorthak was showing them safe planets where they could go, worlds that were far from Vorthak control. "You are giving us directions to freedom," she said, with tears in her eyes. "But what about you?" The great creature carved one more symbol. It was the Vorthak sign for follow. The Gorethak was telling them it would find a way to catch up with them later. As the last shuttles prepared to leave, something unexpected happened. Other Vorthak ships in the area detected the rebellion and came to help Commander Vexmore. But when they arrived, they found their own war beasts turning against them as well. The neural implant technology that controlled creatures throughout the Vorthak fleet was connected by subspace communication. When the implants on the Xmoras ship failed, the failure spread to other vessels. Across the Empire, enslaved creatures began breaking free of their control. The rebellion that started with one human scientist and one tortured beast was spreading to every corner of Vorthak space. The escape shuttles scattered in different directions, carrying freed prisoners back to their homeworlds. Each group took with them the story of what had happened and the knowledge that the Vorthak Empire could be defeated. Minji's shuttle reached Earth 3 weeks later. She was greeted as a hero, but she knew the real heroes were all the beings who had worked together to achieve freedom. 6 months later, she received a message on a frequency she thought no one else knew. It was a simple signal, but she recognized the pattern immediately. The Vorthak had survived. It had found other freed creatures from across the galaxy, and they were building something new together. Not an empire based on conquest and cruelty, but an alliance based on cooperation and mutual respect. The Vorthak Empire was crumbling as more and more of their enslaved species rebelled. But something better was taking its place. Minji smiled as she prepared her response to the Vorthak signal. She had always believed that understanding and empathy were humanity's greatest strengths. Now the entire galaxy was learning the same lesson. The age of predators ruling over prey was ending. The age of cooperation was just beginning. The Vorthak stopped moving completely. For a moment, the entire arena was silent. Even the crowd of thousands of Vorthak stopped cheering and waited to see what would happen. Minji was still holding on to the creature's neck, her heart beating so fast she thought it might explode. She could feel the Vorthak's muscles relaxing under her hands. The artificial tension and rage were leaving its body. Slowly, carefully, the great beast lowered its head to the ground. Minji slid down from its neck and landed softly on the arena floor. She expected the creature to attack her now that she was vulnerable. Instead, the Vorthak looked at her with eyes that were no longer glowing red. They were now a deep, intelligent blue. The creature made a soft rumbling sound, almost like a giant cat purring. "Impossible," Vexmore whispered from his position above the arena. "The neural implants are most advanced technology. A primitive human could not possibly understand how they work." But Minji had not needed to understand the technology. She had only needed to understand the creature's suffering. The Vorthak gently lowered its massive head until it was level with Minji. She could see intelligence in those blue eyes now, and something else, gratitude. Carefully, Minji reached out and touched the creature's snout. The Vorthak did not pull away. Instead, it made that purring sound again, louder this time. "You were in pain," Minji said softly. "They hurt you for so long." "I'm sorry." The crowd was becoming angry and confused. This was not what they had paid to see. They wanted blood and death, not this strange friendship between human and beast. "Kill them both!" some Vorthak shouted. "This is not entertainment." Vexmore was furious. His ultimate weapon had been turned against him by a weak human female. His reputation and authority were being destroyed in front of the entire empire. "Guards," he commanded. "Go into the arena and kill both the human and the defective beast. Use your heavy weapons." A squad of 20 Vorthak soldiers entered the arena carrying large plasma rifles. These weapons were powerful enough to hurt even the Vorthak, but when the soldiers raised their weapons, something unexpected happened. The Vorthak moved to stand between them and Minji. The creature was protecting her. "You are my friend now," Minji said to the great beast, "and I will protect you too." She looked around the arena and noticed something the Vorthak had not considered. There were other gates along the walls, gates that led to holding areas for different creatures. "Can you break those doors?" she asked the Vorthak, pointing at the nearest gate. The creature looked where she was pointing and seemed to understand. It walked over to the gate and smashed it apart with one powerful blow from its claws. Inside the holding area was a pack of smaller predators called Ravagers. They looked like giant wolves with extra arms and glowing spines along their backs. These creatures had also been controlled by neural implants for use in the arena. Minji ran to the confused Ravagers and began cutting their control wires with her plasma knife. As each creature was freed, it looked around with newly clear eyes. "What?" Is the human doing? The Vorthok soldiers asked each other nervously. She is freeing our war beasts, one guard realized with horror. The Gorethak was already breaking open more gates. Each holding area contained different creatures that had been enslaved for entertainment. There were flying beasts with razor wings, underground diggers with steel-hard claws, and swimming predators with poisonous bites. All of them had been controlled by the same neural implant technology. And Minji was freeing them all. "Stop her!" Lexmore screamed. "Stop her now before she ruins everything." More Vorthak soldiers poured into the arena, but now they faced dozens of freed creatures instead of just one human. The liberated beasts were angry about their long captivity, and they remembered who had caused their suffering. The Ravagers attacked the soldiers with fury born of years of forced combat. The flying creatures swooped down from above, their sharp wings cutting through Vorthok armor. The underground diggers used their claws to tunnel beneath. The guards and attack from below, but the most terrifying sight was the Gorethek itself. No longer forced to fight according to Vorthok commands, the creature used its natural intelligence to coordinate the other beasts. It was not just a monster anymore. It was a leader. "Retreat!" one of the Vorthok soldiers shouted. "Fall back to the upper levels." But the creatures were not content to stay in the arena. They began breaking through the walls and spreading into other parts of the ship. Minji climbed onto the Gorthak's back again. From this high position, she could see the entire arena. She also noticed something else. In the holding areas beneath the arena, there were hundreds more cages. This ship was not just carrying war beasts. It was carrying prisoners from dozens of different worlds. "We need to free everyone," she told the Gorthak. "Not just the fighting animals, but all the prisoners." The great creature rumbled in agreement. It seemed to understand that freedom should not belong only to the strong. Together, they began making their way toward the lower levels of the ship. The other freed creatures followed them, no longer wild beasts but allies in a growing rebellion. Above them, alarms were sounding throughout the Vorthak vessel. Commander Lexmore was screaming orders at his crew, trying to contain a situation that was rapidly spinning out of his control. "Seal all blast doors," he commanded. "Activate the ship's defense systems. We cannot let this rebellion spread." But it was already too late. The freed creatures were spreading through the ship like wildfire. And they were no longer alone. In the prisoner-holding areas, Minji found Hyeri and the other captives. Her friend was weak but alive. With the help of the creatures, they broke open all the cages and freed hundreds of prisoners from across the galaxy. "How did you do this?" Hyeri asked weakly as Minji helped her climb onto the Gorthak's back. "I remembered something important," Minji replied. "Every creature, no matter how different, wants the same thing: freedom." The rebellion was no longer just about survival. It had become something much bigger. It had become a revolution. The Gorthak emerged from its den like a nightmare come to life. Minji had thought she was prepared, but nothing could have prepared her for this. The creature was as tall as a 3-story building and twice as long. Its scales were black as space, covered in scars from centuries of battles. 4 massive legs supported its enormous body, each foot ending in claws that could tear through steel. Its head was the size of a small car, filled with teeth like sword blades, but it was the eyes that made Minji's blood freeze. They glowed with a red light that seemed to burn with pure hatred and rage. This was not just a predator. This was something that had been driven mad by pain and anger. The crowd went wild with excitement. This was what they had come to see. The mighty Gorethak would tear the human apart in seconds, and they would cheer every moment of it. "Behold," Lexmore announced with satisfaction, "the ultimate weapon of the Vorthok Empire. No creature has ever survived facing the Gorthak. This human will die like all the others." The Gorethak looked around the arena with those terrible red eyes. When it saw Minji, it let out a roar that shook the entire ship. The sound was so loud that some of the artificial plants in the arena fell over. Minji wanted to run. Every instinct in her human brain screamed at her to flee from this monster. But she forced herself to stay calm and observe. As a xenobiologist, she had studied many predators. She knew that all hunters, no matter how large or dangerous, followed certain patterns. Even this creature had to follow the basic rules of biology and behavior. The Gorthek began to move toward her, but something seemed wrong with its movements. It walked like it was in pain, favoring its left side. Its head twitched occasionally, as if something was bothering it. Then Minji saw them. Small metal devices were attached to the creature's neck and head, almost hidden by its scales. They blinked with the same red light as the Gorthak's eyes. Neural control implants. They are controlling it, she whispered to herself. This changed everything. The Gorethek was not naturally aggressive toward small prey like her. It was being forced to attack by machines that caused it pain and filled it with artificial rage. The creature charged toward her with earth-shaking steps. Minji rolled behind a large rock just as the Gorthak's claws smashed the spot where she had been standing. Pieces of stone flew everywhere, but instead of running away, Minji did something unexpected. She started moving in patterns that predators would not expect from prey. Instead of running in straight lines, she moved in zigzag patterns. Instead of always trying to get farther away, sometimes she moved closer to the Gorthak before changing direction. The crowd was confused. Why does the human move so strangely? Some Vorthak asked each other. Vexmore was also puzzled. The soft skin has gone mad with fear, he decided. Good, madness will make her death more amusing. But Minji was not mad. She was using her knowledge of animal psychology. Most prey animals run in predictable patterns when chased by predators. By moving unpredictably, she was confusing the Gorthak's hunting instincts. The great beast would charge toward where it expected her to be, but Minji was always somewhere else. Each time this happened, the Gorethak became more frustrated and angry. After 20 minutes of this strange chase, something unusual happened. The Gorethak stopped in the middle of the arena and shook its massive head. The red glow in its eyes flickered for a moment. Minji realized that the neural implants were overheating from forcing the creature to be so active. When machines overheat, they sometimes malfunction. During one of these malfunctions, Minji tried something very dangerous. Instead of hiding, she stood still in plain sight of the Gorthak. But instead of acting like prey, she made herself look calm and non-threatening. The Gorthak saw her but did not immediately attack. For a few seconds, its natural intelligence showed through the artificial rage. It tilted its head and looked at her with curiosity instead of hatred. What is happening? Vexmore demanded. Why is the Gorthak not killing the human? The crowd was getting restless. This was not the quick, bloody death they had expected to see, but the moment of clarity did not last long. The neural implants sparked back to full power, and the red glow returned to the creature's eyes. The Gorthak roared and charged at Minji again. This time, however, Minji was ready. She had learned something important. The real enemy was not the Gorthak itself, but the machines that controlled it. She began to study the implants more carefully as she dodged the creature's attacks. There were 6 devices total, connected by thin wires that ran along the Gorthak's neck. If she could damage those connections, she might be able to free the creature from its artificial rage. The problem was getting close enough. The Gorthak's claws and teeth could kill her instantly if she made one mistake, but Minji had an idea. She had noticed that the creature always attacked the same way. It would lower its head and charge like a bull. If she could time it perfectly, she might be able to get on top of the creature's neck during its charge. This is insane, she told herself. But it was her only chance. The next time the Gorthak charged, Minji did not dodge to the side. Instead, she ran straight toward the creature. At the last possible second, she jumped and grabbed onto the scales. On its neck, the crowd gasped in shock. No one had ever tried to ride the Gorthak before. Holding on with one hand, Minji used her plasma knife with the other. She began cutting the wires that connected the neural implants. Each wire she cut made the red glow in the creature's eyes a little dimmer. The Gorethek bucked and twisted, trying to throw her off. But Minji held on with determination born of desperation. She had to free this creature from its torment. Stop. Her! Vexmore screamed at his technicians. Do not let the human damage our weapon. But it was too late. Minji cut the last wire, and all the neural implants went dark. The change in the Gorthak was immediate and dramatic.